Did Emperor Constantine invent the divinity of Christ at the Council of Nicaea? This explosive claim gets thrown around constantly by skeptics, atheists, and critics of Christianity. They paint this dramatic picture where Constantine supposedly gathered bishops together. They argued for days, and then magically voted Jesus into godhood like some kind of ancient political campaign. But here's the thing that absolutely blows my mind about this narrative. When you actually dig into the historical details, this entire story completely falls apart. Let me walk you through what really happened, because the truth is far more fascinating than the fiction. First, let's set the stage properly. Before the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, Christianity had just emerged from the most brutal persecution in its history. From 303 to 311 AD under Emperor Diocletian, Christians faced systematic torture, imprisonment, and execution. These weren't people who compromised easily on their beliefs. They had literally been willing to die for them just years earlier. When Constantine legalized Christianity in 313 AD with the Edict of Milan, he didn't make it the official religion. That's a crucial distinction most people miss. He simply stopped the persecution and allowed Christians to practice openly. Christianity wouldn't become the empire's sole legal religion until 380 AD under Theodosius. So what actually triggered the Council of Nicaea? A pastor from Alexandria named Arius started teaching that Jesus was a created being, not truly God. This wasn't some ancient debate between multiple competing versions of Christianity. It was specifically about Arius challenging what Christians had already believed for centuries. The controversy grew so intense that Constantine, wanting unity in his newly stabilized empire, decided to settle the dispute once and for all. Here's where the popular narrative completely misses the mark. The council wasn't a theological free-for-all with Gnostics, Ebionites, and dozens of competing Christian sects duking it out. Most of those groups had already faded away by this point. This was specifically a debate between Orthodox Christians and Arians. Constantine invited over 1,800 bishops, but only about 300 could attend. Most were from the eastern part of the empire, with just a dozen representing the west. And remember, these men had recently survived horrific persecution. They weren't politicians looking to compromise their core beliefs for political convenience. The council had three main groups. The smallest was Arius and a handful of bishops who believed the Father and Jesus were different substances. The largest group was the Orthodox faction, led by figures like Hosius of Cordova and Alexander of Alexandria, along with a young deacon named Athanasius. They maintained the traditional belief that Jesus was fully God and had existed eternally with the Father. The third group, led by Eusebius of Caesarea, actually agreed theologically with the Orthodox position about Christ's divinity. Their only disagreement was over using the specific Greek term, homoousios, same substance, because previous heretical groups had misused that word to suggest the Father and Son were the same person rather than distinct persons of one being. Now here's the part that destroys the Constantine conspiracy theory completely. The emperor didn't push any particular theological position. He wasn't a theologian and frankly didn't care about the technical details. All he wanted was unity and agreement between the factions. When the bishops examined Arius's teachings using scripture, they found he had developed novel interpretations for every biblical text that contradicted his position. The church leaders pointed out that his views were problematic precisely because they were new. They couldn't find support for Arian theology in any early church writings or traditions. In the end, all but Arius and two bishops signed the Nicene Creed, which affirmed Christ's full divinity. This wasn't a close vote or political maneuvering. It was an overwhelming rejection of Arianism as a departure from historic Christian belief. But wait, it gets even better. The results actually infuriated Constantine. He wanted compromise, not one side decisively defeating the other. He was so displeased that he eventually showed sympathy toward Arius and even tried to force the church to readmit him before Arius died. After Constantine's death, Arian bishops actually gained significant political power under subsequent emperors. They used this influence to persecute Orthodox Christians, forcing many church leaders into exile or compromise. One historian described this period as when the whole world groaned and was astonished to find itself Arian. The hero of this story is Athanasius of Alexandria, who almost single-handedly stood against the Arian political machine. He was banished from his position 5 times but never wavered in defending traditional Christian theology about Christ's divinity. Eventually, the Arians destroyed themselves through internal fighting. and Orthodox Christianity prevailed at the Council of Constantinople in 381 AD. So the historical record shows the exact opposite of what skeptics claim. It wasn't Orthodox Christians who gained political power and suppressed competing views. It was the Arians who seized political control and tried to stamp out traditional Christianity. The Orthodox position survived not through political manipulation but through theological consistency and the courageous stand of leaders like Athanasius. The Council of Nicaea didn't invent Christ's divinity, create the Trinity, or establish Christianity. It simply confirmed what Christians had believed from the beginning when faced with Arius's innovative challenge to that faith. The next time someone tells you Constantine invented Jesus' divinity at Nicaea, ask them for specific historical details. You'll find they can't provide them, because when you examine the actual evidence, this popular conspiracy theory crumbles faster than a house of cards in a hurricane.